Nick Benjamin and Andy Waterfield.
We're having a nosy around the BBC in Birmingham, and
Yes.
we went to the mailbox.
We did.
Which is their, let's just say, somewhat smaller replacement for Pebble Mill, which was that enormous, vast production centre which they had in Edgbaston, but that's all gone. And they moved to the mailbox years ago, and I've always wanted to have a good look around. And we got quite a good look around yesterday, and we went to the Archers experience. The Archers is the world's longest-running drama serial. It's been on the radio since 1951. Every night, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
12 and a half minutes, apparently. That's according to the writer
minutes
yesterday.
an episode.
Yes.
And it's very famous around the world for storylines and that sort of thing. But yesterday was a chance to go into the studio, which was fascinating. And they had a panel with a writer. It was really interesting to hear his take on it. A producer who I thought was towing the line.
Oh, okay.
But quite rightly so. That's her job. Well, the answers were very measured.
Yes.
No opinions on anything.
It was also...
BBC don't have opinions, do they?
No.
But that's fine. I mean, I would expect nothing less from that. And two actors.
Who Simon Williams, very well-known actor.
Well known.
Currently in EastEnders, apparently.
Yeah.
And also in The Archer. And
Sonny Ormond, who plays Lillian, who is...
Oh, darling.
I suppose you could describe as a 70-year-old tart with a heart.
Well, that's how she described herself, isn't it?
And it's great. And they were really interesting, actually, because radio acting is a whole different thing.
Yes.
You know, you've only got your voice to do it. You haven't got to dress up in silly costumes. But I think that puts you at a disadvantage because it takes a long time for you to build the understanding of that character, whereas usually just a coat can do it on telly.
I think the only benefit to that acting on the radio rather than acting on a stage is the fact that you can take your scripts with you. Yeah, that's one of the things they were mentioning. They print it on Croxley paper, which I think is quite thick paper that doesn't rattle too much. It's been
a long time since I've heard the phrase Croxley paper under any circumstances, actually.
Exactly.
But it's really, really good.
Croxley paper, yes.
So they were very, very interesting. The studio was great fun. We had a good poke around the dead room, which they use for outdoor scenes.
Yes, that's very good.
And the acoustic trap, which means by going not very far around a heavily soundproofed space, it sounds like you are a long way away. And that's how they do scenes where someone's calling, say, from up a hill or from upstairs. It's very clever, very, very creative.
And of course, as we always do when we're going out and about, we take our recorder with us, and we're putting together a special show for in a couple of weeks' time about Birmingham,
which features nothing to do whatsoever with the Archers and the BBC.
No, exactly.
Nick Benjamin and Andy Waterfield.
I want to talk more about Radio 4.
Oh, go on, talk more about Radio 4.
Because the Archers, yes,
other radio stations are available.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you pay for it, for your licence fee.
You do, but, the BBC is there and it provides a good service, and although what's going on now at the dial is interesting. And but I want to know, have you ever listened to the Radio 4 series with Melvyn Bragg, In Our Time?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
Now, if anybody has, you must...
It's Thursday morning? Is it Thursday morning?
I don't care. There you go.
Right,
but I want to know if you can tweet in... if you have ever listened to Radio 4 and managed, in our time, and managed to do these things. First of all, listened all the way through to the end.
All right, yeah.
Understood the topic, never mind the discussion. Found the guests for that week's programme engaging. And you didn't feel utterly inadequate after the first 5 minutes.
Right. What makes you say all of those things? Because if people haven't listened to the programme before, you've sort of summed up... probably some of the negatives from it. So
it's a very smug, self-knowing, smug discussion about moral and ethical issues, very broadly, and historical issues, where Melvyn Bragg, who is a fantastic presenter and patron of the arts, whistles through the introduction at a speed of a high-speed train, and then introduces the round table guests who just talk for 45 minutes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And these round table guests are usually senior reader in this, emeritus... I have no idea what that means.
I don't know. Emeritus professor. Yes, I never sure what that is.
From somewhere. There's always someone from an American university, a European, usually Dutch university, and a couple of our very prestigious ones in this country. All universities are available. And they talk about stuff, and I haven't the faintest idea what they are talking about. Now, it probably says more about me than anybody else, but I can't believe you're a typical person listening on a Thursday morning on Radio 4 for casual listening while baking cakes. That's what you do when you listen to Radio 4 is you bake cakes. I can't imagine...
How do you work that one out?
Well, we all know that's the thing, isn't it? You spend the morning at home cooking and you listen to Radio 4.
It's a lovely idea.
And I can't imagine that anybody's going, this is a really engaging, interesting programme that I've fully understood because, I'm not that stupid. I have no idea what they are talking about ever.
I have set myself a challenge on some occasions to sit down at 3 minutes past 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning and think, right, I'm going to concentrate really, really hard. And I'm the most alert at that time. I've got my coffee, strong coffee. I'm ready for it. And honestly, within 3 minutes, I've lost the thread of what it's all about already. It's usually about really strange topics.
Yeah.
And some of them are historic topics. Some of them are scientific topics. And it's really difficult just to stick with it, isn't it?
It's not at all accessible. And fair enough, so we don't want to be accessible. And that is absolutely fine.
But it's
fine.
your BBC. You're supposed to be able to...
I know, but really... So, has anybody actually listened to this weird programme and got all the way through it?
You've really built it up, and people will be tuning in their droves on Thursday morning, won't
they? If you've never listened to it, and you're not in on Thursday morning, because frankly, that's quite reasonable, you can go to the website and just download them.
There's a whole archive,
do try. Work your way through that lot and see how you get on. I'm intrigued.
Nick Benjamin and Andy Waterfield.
Anyway, yes, I went to another university.
Oh, you're not going to mention it?
No, I don't think it's right.
Fair enough.
And I thought it was great. I have to say, a lot of students turn up very nervous, and I don't think there's any need to be. It's very easy to say that. I couldn't wait to go. I was counting down the days. I thought it was going to be great.
I couldn't wait to go, because I grew up in Pembrokeshire in West Wales, which is very quiet.
Yeah.
Very, almost felt sort of back of beyond, and I was going to a big city for the first time, and I was really, really excited about it too. Yeah.
I was. And I
couldn't wait to go.
No, I couldn't wait. I can understand why people get very nervous about moving away from home and everything, but it's a really good, safe way of doing it, because typically people stay in halls of residence. There's lots of people to help you out, and it's sort of controlled independence, isn't it? I didn't stay in halls of residence for one reason or another, but it's a nice way of sort of doing it rather than just moving into your own flat. Some people move into their own flat at 30 have not done it before, which I think is quite strange at that age, but hey, it happens. And then at 30 they can't cope because they can't work out that they've got to do the washing and cook something and everything. But I think it's a very nice managed way of doing it, and also it's safe. Nothing... there's lots of people around to look after you and get you into it. And so
it's just gaining your own independence, isn't it? That's the thing. One of the strangest things is the place I was living, it was it was a tower block, actually, that the university had bought from the council. And so they were putting two people who'd never met each other into a shared flat, which was quite a strange experience. So I was sharing with someone who was doing history. And but it didn't have a washing machine. And that's the first thing you suddenly go, because you halfway through the week you go, I've got all this washing. Now what do I do? What?
Where was the washing facility?
I had to go to a laundrette.
Was it not like a basement with some washing?
No. So there's nothing.
Well, I thought you were saying there's like a general wash thing downstairs with 5 machines or something.
No, it probably is these days, but it wasn't then. So you had to sort of lug your washing up the road to the laundrette, and that was a really strange thing, because I suppose it's a terrible thing to say, but up until the age of 18, your mum had been doing the washing at home, and suddenly you thought, I've got to start washing these things.
And the washing machine was just there, wasn't it?
It was.
Well, the thing I noticed now, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing at all.
Is it all smarter and easier?
When you see the halls of residence here out of our studio window, you can see the standard of it. There were nothing like that 20 years ago. And every generation says that, it's so much better now. But I'm looking at the facilities now. They've got a gym which looks out onto the square.
Oh yeah.
And I suspect the rooms inside are really quite good. Well, there was nothing wrong with the one I went to at all. It was absolutely fine, but they weren't like that.
No. Everything's a bit smarter.
People's standards are a little bit higher. But then I think the other thing is it was much cheaper when I went. I mean, my rent, when I lived in a shared house with one other person, my rent was £25 a week.
That was a long time ago.
It was only 20 years ago, but still, that's £50 a week for a house. £50 a week between us.
Yes.
You don't pay your council tax either on that, because you're students, you get council tax rebate.
And what about that thing with the TV licence? I was always a bit unsure about what the rule was about that.
I had to make a dreadful confession to some people this week that when I went to university, first of all, we genuinely forgot to buy a TV licence for a while. And then one weekend we sat there, so about 4 or 5 weeks into term, and someone said, we haven't got a TV licence, like an advert came on the TV. And it was a Saturday, so okay, fine, we've got the money, here it is.
You somewhat.
Well, we put the money on one side, because then you have to go to the post office and buy it as one thing. So we'd all got the money, and someone said, right, on Monday I'll go and get the TV licence from the post office up the road. Anyway, on the Sunday we opened the front door, and it was one of those houses where the front door was right out onto the pavement.
Yeah.
And outside, I thought it was a bit dark in here. Why is there no light coming in the front room? Opened the front door, and parked right outside the front door was a TV licence detector van.
Oh, right.
So, and we hadn't got a TV licence. I was like, close the door, turn it off.
I don't think
I don't know if it actually does anything. I don't know.
Well, it's one of those hypocritical
out.
things, isn't it, where people don't know if they detect it. I don't think they have them anymore, do they?
I thought they did.
Oh, I thought they just relied on the fact that you either pay by direct debit or they know if you've had one or not.
I think it's quite sophisticated. They talk about how they can even work out which room you're watching.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was one of those myths. Now, we are advising you as a public service organisation in some ways. We are advising you to go out and get your TV licence. However,
it's the law.
I really don't know if those vans actually did anything. I really don't know. In the olden days, now we're talking about back in the 70s and 80s, but you did see these vans that had strange twirly areas.
Yeah, and I was never sure.
I was never sure.
I'm guessing if you're living in halls of residence, the TV licence is bought.
I don't know. We should be. Well, that's why we're saying to you, make your own inquiries. We don't want to advise you one way or another.
Here's the rule.
Yes.
If you're living in a shared house or flat, it's one per household.
Yes.
If
you don't have to have
you've
one
got
each.
your own individual dwelling, it's one each.
Exactly,
so don't spend money you don't need to. But you've got to buy your licence. It's the law.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to those detective vans, I'm sure, because they used to have adverts for them on the BBC about detective vans going up the street and being all very scary. And there were tales at the time of people wrapping their television in tinfoil,
which I don't advise at all.
And I don't think that did anything at all.
I think that's dangerous.
I think that's dangerous and likely to overheat.
Yes.
So that's probably not such a good idea.
That advert with the TV licence detective van
scary, weren't they?
The same person in that was in the Brian I Smell Gas advert of the 1980s.
What was the Brian I Smell Gas
That
advert?
was the gas safety advert about what you should do if you go home and the house smells of gas.
Well,
and you should you should not touch any electric, obviously, and you should phone the gas board. There's an emergency number, which of course you can't do now because most people's home phones are connected to the electricity system.
Right,
there's an answer phone bill, but back then they weren't.
Well, go outside your house with your mobile phone.
Yes, and then go. Yeah, but then there's a whole thing.
Do you know what number to phone though? I mean, you don't have gas in your flat, but I don't think I'd know what phone number.
No, but I
to
think
ring.
if you phone the emergency services, they'll deal with it.
You can't phone the police about your gas.
I think if you say there's a gas leak, I think they will know what to do. But that's a good point. Anyway,
well, we'll find out.
This dreadful advert
let you know.
was this sort of
it was quite hammy, wasn't it?
Middle England middle-aged couple arriving back into their 80s home with all the floral wallpaper, walking the door, and it was Brian, I smell gas. And then there's lots of these confused faces, and then the voiceover came over, that awful voiceover of doom. And then the last shot was him going, no! As the camera whipped round and she was about to turn the light switch on.
Oh, right.
And the joke was always they should remake it as Brian I Smell Gas, or that's nice, put the chips on, see where that would go. But they didn't obviously do that.
No.
So, but it was the same cast. I'm sure it was the same people in both adverts, and I used to find that very confusing as a child.
Yeah, well, there's lots of public information films that don't go out at all anymore. You never see them anymore, do you?
Well, what got me about those public information films is some of them were really quite awful and evil and harrowing. There's
Especially
one
about throwing a frisbee into the electricity substation.
And the railway line safety playing on the tracks. And yet they were just shoved on very casually during children's programmes.
Exactly.
Nobody seemed to worry about it.
It could distress you for the rest of your life, really.
If you released them on DVD, they'd be 18 rated, some of them. They're horrific. Just, chuck that on in between the Pink Panther show and Top Cat,
Nick Benjamin and Andy Waterfield.
Now, Ryanair.
Oh, okay. Let's go straight to the point here.
Yes, Ryanair. Let's not talk about what they're actually doing. Let's just talk about the PR disaster they've had, because it seems to be that when companies go wrong, there's ways that you can manage that and sort of it all goes away.
You'd hope so. That's what the press office is usually for.
Well, yeah, and then there's ways in which sort of people go out of their way to do the exact opposite, and Ryanair are doing quite well at just making the situation worse, aren't they?
So give us the backstory to it for people who aren't sure.
They've mucked up their pilot's holiday. And so you've got a load of pilots who are taking holiday, which means they can't operate their service. And so apparently up to 300,000 customers will have their flights cancelled. Between 50 and 60 flights a day will
That's
be
quite substantial.
It is quite a lot, isn't it? Running between now and apparently into November this is going to go on.
Okay.
And so, I mean, above all, if you haven't booked yet, that still makes you think twice about booking with that organisation.
Well, it's meat and drink for the opposition, isn't it, really?
Well, it really is. We guarantee our flights to go. And we know that flights get cancelled every so often because of just things. But this is a logistical disaster they've had. They haven't managed it properly.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
And then
it.
you have the management and, what's-his-face himself,
Yeah.
not really helping matters by going on television and radio and making statements which is unlikely to dissolve the situation and diffuse
Have you
the
got
tension.
any examples there?
Well, just saying he's saying the pilot's job is easy.
Oh, well, that's not so good, is it?
And there was on another radio station, a pilot phoned in and gave an account of his interpretation of the working conditions. Fine, whatever. But you do wonder, does nobody say, look, you need to stop talking now, or let us deal with this, or our PR strategy for dealing with this, our damage limitation, isn't working? And the same happened a few weeks ago with Nectar.
Oh, yes.
When they decided to announce that they were delighted to be teaming up with the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail is it's a Marmite newspaper. You either like it or you really dislike it because you feel it's not very inclusive.
Sure, okay.
And so Nectar's had a PR disaster because they didn't engage with the complaints. They just set out the same anodyne statement over and over again. And it's been a bit of a PR disaster for them. So at what point do they say, yeah, we need to change tack here because this really isn't working?
Well, I thought most organisations would have a sort of cupboard with disaster in it, and you reach in for the file and it has the style guide on how to handle things. Because most organisations have their procedural guide, and you sort of think, well, if this is a PR disaster, look in the PR disaster cupboard, and it tells you how to do it, which is probably not to wheel out your CEO to just talk off the cuff about anything he wants to
slightly
say,
inflammatory
which
comments.
doesn't make anything easier.
Do you remember a couple of years ago there was that, I'm not even sure it was a serious suggestion, but this sort of suggestion was chucked out about making passengers pay to use the toilet on board.
Yes,
I mean, I'm not sure
if they actually ever said it.
No, I honestly don't know.
People interpreted it as
and
that.
The other one was
standing up.
Standing flight. I mean, I don't think you would be allowed to do that
I
anyway.
don't think the Civil Aviation Authority would allow you to stand up. It's not a bus, is it? It's not the 29, is it?
And I don't know if they ever actually made that suggestion or whether that's what it became. But it's just very odd how you get these very big, successful organisations with huge management teams who can't handle a bit of bad press and go into meltdown and make it worse. You just think, just shut up.
Well,
Don't
of course,
say
the person that we remember most, if we're of a certain age, is Gerald Ratner.
Of course.
That was, for those of you who probably don't remember it, that was a jewellery shop chain. And
a very successful one.
It was very successful.
Everywhere.
It was very everywhere. We saw Ratners everywhere. And his greatest PR disaster, and we're not making our own views on it, we're just telling you the facts. He was at one of his, I think it was the shareholders meetings, wasn't it? And he said something very choice about the quality of the jewellery.
I'm not going to actually say it.
No,
but
we're not going to say it.
But his statement was, people ask me, how do you make your jewellery so cheap? And he said it's because Absolute.
Yes.
And then
you can
find that out online.
Yes.
And
within
about a month,
you found out there were no Ratner stores, and it suddenly becomes something else.
It killed his own successful business.
It's a very silly thing to say.
Strange.
There's sometimes you sort of think to yourself, there is a point where you actually stop and you think and you say, actually, well, I may well have this view, but I'm not going to share that with my customer base, because my customer base are the ones who are putting food on the table, aren't they, really?
But at the same time now, you get a lot of companies who go overboard with the other side of things, where everything is always wonderful and glorious and amazing.
Well, we were talking about this morning, wandering into the studio, because I'd emailed an organisation about something. I'm being very vague here, but their email response was, "Thank you for reaching out to us," and I hate that term.
We are not in
Where's
America.
this come from? Reaching out? I didn't reach out. What's this reaching out? I emailed you, actually.
The opposite of that, where it's come from, is an outreach project that can go do one and all.
Yeah, there's certain phrases that have become sort of marketing speak, haven't they?
My other one, which I mentioned this morning on the way in, is when people challenge views or actions they don't like. We've got it from America that someone was called out on their behaviour. Called out. I'm going to call out someone. What? No, you're not. You're going to challenge them or talk to them or confront them. But call out is really American.
It is. Yes.
But it's real management speak, which unfortunately is infiltrating everyday life. Except you get big companies to do it so wrong. It's great.
But there's also products, again, we'll be very careful, but there are products out there that have things written on the side that as if it's talking to you. So it might be, and I picked something at random, a yogurt pot, and it says, "Hello, we hope you enjoy the yogurt."
Don't.
It's like, please don't say hello to me, because you're a yogurt pot. You can't talk to me.
Are you thinking about the train toilet?
What did the train toilets
Hi,
as well?
Don't put a sweat. Oh, go away. My favourite one.
Perhaps it does appeal to someone, though. Perhaps we're of the wrong generation.
No, I don't think
Perhaps
it does.
Out here.
I think people just feel annoyed, or they ignore it, and perhaps I'm just so I don't know, sensitive to that now. Oh, snowflake. But the one I remember buying some apples once.
Oh, yeah.
And they had far too much packaging anyway. And it said that these apples make for a wonderful eating experience.
As opposed to what?
As opposed
Throwing
to what?
them at people.
And what? I'm not having an experience. I'm eating an apple. It's not an experience.
Well, let's see, that's where you're going wrong. You should be having an experience with
Really?
Apple. Yes.
Oh, I remember that tomorrow. I'm having my lunch at 12 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm just having an eating experience. What? You know,
there's quite a lot of that around.
There's a load of
moment.
sort of like junk that's going around this kind of language.
Oh, dear me. It's not good at all. It's not good at all.
Nick Benjamin and Andy Waterfield.
Hotels.
Yes.
See, this is where it's all going.
Well, this is where it's going, isn't it?
Yes, you go out on these little trips, and we do really well. We buy really cheap train tickets. The one yesterday back from Birmingham was £3.65.
Yes, I don't know how you managed to get it that cheap.
And very nice as well it was too.
Did you notice that a person that sat opposite who hadn't got on the correct train and was then encouraged to buy a £20 ticket?
Did you see the Facebook? What?
Yeah. Well, he said, I didn't realise. Now, to be honest, he looked like a very smart student going to university because he had all his bits and bobs around him, taking an inordinate amount of stuff on the train like I used to do.
Yes, I felt sorry for him for doing all of that.
And then he presented his ticket, and I thought, well, you're obviously quite a smart chap. Can you not see that the time on your ticket is not the time of the train you're currently sitting on? And the conductor was having none of it.
Yes, and it does say on the ticket, advanced ticket can only be used on this one train.
It was quite clear.
That's it.
It was quite clear.
Did he have that advanced ticket?
No, but he had £20 removed from him for his journey,
I thought
which
was
still quite
cheap,
reasonable.
I have to say. If you got on the other line, it would have been a damn sight more than £20.
Yes.
So we stay in these hotels, which we like to get cheap ones. Don't want to pay too much for them.
Fair enough, yeah.
And the one we stayed in this week was you got free breakfast. It was just part of the deal, and it wasn't very expensive anyway.
No.
And I have to say, I thought the room was very, very good, and the breakfast was very good as well.
It was, yeah.
And if you stay in a B&B, you get your breakfast. That's the whole point. And
of course,
you don't pay an awful lot. But some of these hotels you go to now...
Go on.
They charge you quite a lot. There's one not a million miles away from here, which is £250 a night.
Really?
No breakfast. And the breakfast is $24.99 each.
That's churlish, isn't it?
You know, eggs and a few sausages and some tomatoes don't cost £25.
No.
So, and that really bothers me when they charge that.
You've told me that before, because when we've looked online for things,
so cross.
We will avoid hotels that are actually charging you separately for the breakfast. Now, if you're paying £40 for your room,
fine,
and then they want to charge you for breakfast, that's fine. But if they're charging you anywhere upwards of sort of 80 quid, I think to ask you to pay on top of that for breakfast is quite something.
But that dump of a hotel we stayed in,
which we won't mention the name of,
a few weeks ago, wanted £15 if you paid for the breakfast, but we had a deal where you didn't have to do that anyway.
Included,
but 15 quid for that dump.
That's quite...
And then you go to some places where they charge you £8.50, and you think, okay, but then it comes up with the phrase... all you can eat.
And of course you see that as a challenge, don't you?
Yeah, it's not an invite to have what you like. It is how much can you eat.
And when they then say to you, the breakfast area is open from 7 to 11, it's like, well, that's my 4 hours sorted out.
And that's exactly what it is. Which means, but you see, if it was included in the price, they wouldn't get through so much food because people would be a bit more moderate. But because you'd paid for it, you think, I'm jolly well going to get £8.50 worth of food.
And the place we stayed at yesterday, because the breakfast was included, you're more inclined to go, yeah, I'll just have a coffee.
People
and
were very modest,
and
weren't they?
Very modest about it, yeah.
Now, but you see, here's the thing. If it's £8.50,
yes,
all you can eat.
Yes.
Well, I've now bought that product, and I can go back to that buffet as often as I like. So what's to stop me going up there with a plate, serving myself a load of food, and then gifting it to you?
Oh, okay.
And then going up myself and getting another one, because I could do that anyway, couldn't I?
Okay, so I go in and I don't have the breakfast. I say I'm just sitting with you.
Yeah, which is fine.
You pay for the breakfast, and then you bring back twice as many of every item, and then you hand it over to me.
And then I gift you that food, or gift you the coffee.
Well, yes, because theoretically you could be ordering 8 veggie sausages for yourself because you feel like being greedy,
and that's fine.
But then you could give 4 to me. Yeah, I wonder if there's anything in the small print about gifting your breakfast.
I mean,
I bet there's not. And also, can you imagine any staff member actually challenging you on it? They're not like to come over and say, excuse me, you didn't pay for breakfast. And I say, well, I'm not. I've just been gifted this sausage.
Yeah, and and who keeps the receipt anyway? It'd be very difficult to print. Or here's another one.
Go on.
Some of them you can charge.
You really thought this through.
Well, some of them you can pay an amount for one type of not the cooked breakfast.
Oh, yeah, like a continental
and then
breakfast.
You can pay a bit more for the full cooked breakfast. So you pay for the cheaper one, and then you go and help yourself to the baked beans and the sausages anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how are they going to remember if they've got 40 other people there at the same time, and usually not enough staff? So Is this a flaw in the system here?
Wow.
Have I found a way? It's probably highly illegal, so I'm not suggesting you do it. But come on, why can I not gift you food that I've paid for?
Well, I mean, what's to stop you taking some breakfast back to your room and saying, I'm taking this back to my room, and then putting it out for me, and then going back down and having another one?
I once stayed in one hotel where a woman turned up with a flask saying, I've had my breakfast, can I have a flask of tea to
I
take with me
remember
on the train?
staying somewhere with you in a certain big city where, do you
I
know where they
where
have
this is going.
Yeah, we know where they have
going.
those baguettes that you're supposed to take a slice off of. They even provide you with a knife for you to slice a slice off. Well, she took the whole baguette and was slicing it down the middle and filling it with cheese and taking it out for a lunch.
But then they provide bags with you as well, so you can put it in a bag to
she was
take
a bit
out.
of
I
a
mean, they're
bag,
not asking
yes.
for it.
Well, she-
But see, so come on, could someone tell me why can you not do this? What's to stop me going
Well, I
to an
suppose it's
all-you-can-eat?
ethics, isn't it?
Well, it's your own moral position,
Yeah, it's your
and
moral
I
standing.
wouldn't do this.
It's your
But-
moral compass, isn't it?
But
really?
you could just pay for one breakfast and just give someone the food.
Well, I suppose so, but there's always that risk. You see, I've often found it strange as well. If you stay in a hotel where the breakfast is included, what stops anyone just coming in off the street and saying, well, we know that the food is always provided
Well, they wouldn't
here.
know, would
No,
they?
They wouldn't know, actually. Or drop my
In fact, there's been a couple of places I've stayed where they're big hotels, 12 floors,
How would they
whatever.
know?
How would they know if that's what you should be doing or not?
Perhaps we should take a recorder and try it. No,
Have we
that's
just given people who are listening some really awful, inappropriate, and downright illegal ideas?
No, but I think-
we're not suggesting you do
No,
this.
I think what we're doing is we're suggesting to the hotel that it might want to look at the way they do things.
Well,
or
now it's
just
become like a prison, isn't it?
just
Where,
make every breakfast free, make it part of the deal, and then you get around that problem completely, don't
well, I
you?
do feel aggrieved when you're paying £90, £100, and you've got to pay extra for some toast or something. I mean, that's really mean. And there are hotels, some of the top hotels in London, where you do have to pay extra. And I just think, well, what's the point? Who's going to not have it? I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
There's some strange breakfast items as well in some of the hotels you go
Flapjacks.
to.
Muffins and cakes.
Yeah, I mean, muffins, they call them breakfast muffins now.
They're
but
not. It
that's-
was chocolate, that one I saw.
Flapjacks, though, that's a strange thing for breakfast, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're really sugary, sweet flapjacks.
Well, that's the
I mean,
idea.
it's
You're supposed to
really,
have
really...
yeah.
I don't know if I can manage all of that.
One final thing on the breakfast was we stayed somewhere, and I love it because they have these containers that have a tap at the bottom. And you rotate the tap around and the cereal dispenses out to your bowl.
Yes.
Now, didn't you tell me a story of you staying somewhere where a little boy was having a go at
I
this?
was staying, I think...
You were
it
mortified
was-
on his behalf, weren't you?
Yeah, I think it was in Bristol or somewhere.
right,
and it was a funny arrangement, and I could just see what was going on.
Yeah.
And he'd
It's these
obviously...
tall canisters, aren't they,
they're-
with cereal
and there's
in
like three of them on a twirly thing to
Frosties and
more space efficient.
Yeah, Cocoa Pops or something.
And his mum had dispensed him out some boring bran flakes or something,
yeah.
and he didn't want those. So on the quiet, while she wasn't looking, he'd gone back to top up with some Cocoa Pops, which I think is a perfectly
this
reasonable...
is such a good idea. I would do that too.
So he was there, and unfortunately, the way it was positioned, it hadn't been put in properly, so it wasn't his fault. So he turned the
little
dial
tap,
for the Cocoa Pops, and the entire canister slid off. Slid onto the floor, and the bottom came off, and it just dispensed all these Cocoa Pops all over the floor. He looked at it, looked at me, and just ran off and pretended nothing ever happened. And I thought, you're going to be all right in life, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's exactly. And then this poor member of staff came and went,
What's happened here? Yeah. It's probably not the first time it's happened.
and suddenly Henry Hoover was out the cupboard, and all the Cocoa Pops were being zupped up.
So it's Henry Hoover.
And I was thinking, what a waste of Cocoa
Right,
Pops.
it's a waste of Cocoa Pops, yeah.
And do you find that when you go to hotels, you have breakfast deals that you'd never normally have, such as
Cocoa Pops. Yeah.
which I would never have things like that.
Well, I do find myself eating a lot more when you're staying in a hotel because of the breakfast. Because I generally wouldn't be having fruit in the morning, but I find myself going back and having a
want
bowl of
18
mixed
grapefruit
fruit
segments.
and 18 grapefruit segments. And on the way out, I'll just have this apple and banana for later,
Yes.
which I wouldn't normally do that. It's
And
very
still,
strange.
my favourite one is people who suddenly feel the need to have a latte and orange juice and a yoghurt.
'Cause no
And
one
I
has
think
orange juice at home, do they?
No, and it's really awful orange juice. It's horrible stuff. And
Especially if you have a yogurt.
I just think all that curdling going on in your stomach.
Oh,
In my
they're
mind, your
thinking
stomach
about
is a
it.
washing machine just spinning around. I'm sure it's not, though.
No,
I'm sure it's not.
No, you've got a very vivid imagination when it comes to breakfast, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I like a nice breakfast.
Yeah,
it's
so-
an important way to start the day. Isn't that Nescafe? Anyway.
If you say so. Whatever you say.
This is a Two Voices production at 2V Radio on Twitter or twovoices.co.uk.